Life doesn't follow a straight path. Through addiction, heartbreak, prison, and grief, we rise. From rock bottom to business success, healing, and purpose. This is the Long Way Round Show. Real stories to uplift, inspire, and remind you. The long way is worth it. Hosted by Daniel Cook. Stay tuned. We've got a powerful episode ahead.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Long Way Round Show. Got a great guest on this afternoon. The bloke Caleb, we've sort of met a few times in recovery circles, and this guy's, done a lot of prison and been trying to turn his life around the last few years, and he's doing really well. And we thought we'd talk about some of the different challenges that people have when they're trying to turn their life around. And it's a real journey. It's not just we don't just wake up one day and go, that's it, we're going to change. We can change, but it's a process. So, yeah, introduce yourself, Caleb, and we'll talk a little bit about your story.
Yeah, no worries, bro. My name's Caleb Palauskas. I'm 35. I am, I'm a proud Aboriginal man. I've spent a lot of years in jail, a lot of years in institutions and rehabs, and I really struggled a lot with addiction and things like that in the past. Yeah, but like today, it's I'm really having a crack at a better life, because I really feel like I can do it and I deserve it these days.
Yeah, bloody oath you can do it, bro. Of course you can. So let's start a little bit at the start. What was your childhood like? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Canberra.
Yeah, right.
It was like I was born in the Canberra hospital. It was like my childhood was it was a little bit, the start of my childhood was all right. It was my dad died when I was young. My dad died when I was about 4, and it was just me, my mum, and my sister at that time. I don't really I really can't remember much of like when I was real young, but my mum, today she's a really strong lady, and she's really had my back through a lot of stuff. And like I come from, we didn't have money, but like mum always tried to give us the best, and she always supported us, and like it was hard for her as a single mum, like she always, she tried to put us in like in the right schools and things like that. But it was a struggle for her, because she was by herself and trying to raise 2 kids at the time she had. Things weren't perfect, but we got by.
Yep. And what was school for you like? Like, were you pretty good at sport and stuff like that? And did you struggle with like reading and writing or anything like that? Or were you pretty good at school?
Nah, so I always struggled at school. Always. I was good at sport. That's one thing that I was good at. Like I always excelled in all sports that I'd done. I was good at soccer when I was really young. I was good at footy. I was good at sprinting, I was good at basketball, and I excelled in all these sports when I was young, and I was picked for, like state sides and to play representative. And, I was a really talented kid when it come to sports, but like I was really uncomfortable in the classroom, but I can remember I didn't feel like I fitted in there, because I was, like my mum is, like my dad was Aboriginal. My mum is like, she's not Aboriginal, and like I kind of, and like kids can be mean, and there was a bit of bullying, and like I just felt like I didn't really fit in at places, and like all I really had was my sports. And don't get me wrong, I did have people around me, but I found it hard to make connections, I guess, looking back on it.
Yep. Did you move around a bit, or were you sort of at one school for primary school and high school, or how was that?
So primary school, like I went to a few different primary schools. I remember, like I went to, I can't even remember where I started at kindergarten, and then like I went to a school called Brindabella in Canberra when through to like I think year 1 and 2, and then like we moved to I remember we moved to Ulladulla for a couple of years, near Batemans Bay. I went to school there. I think I'd done year like 3 or 4 there. And then, we come back to Canberra and like I went to Cook Primary. Like I was always like I was moving around a lot at school, and then when it came to high school, I didn't last very long in high school. But I'd done about three different high schools, and then I was expelled, and and I kind of just stopped going to school and kind of fell into the wrong things there.
Yeah, gotcha. So you were pretty talented at a few sports. Like, what if the drugs and alcohol weren't a thing, and maybe if you weren't moving around as much and things like that? Do you think there would have been one sport that you could have really made it like as a professional football player or anything like that, or do you think that would have been on the cards if it wasn't for the drugs and alcohol? Or
yeah, you know what? Basketball.
wow.
I was really good at basketball. I was picked in all the Division 1 sides, and I played representative basketball, and I was picked in, like I played for the ACT, and like we travelled around, and like I was really talented at basketball. Then I guess at the point where I could have, where I needed to either focus on what I wanted to do with sport or go down the wrong path. As a kid, you can't really think too far ahead, and you don't see the bigger picture. And, I just wanted to do what I did, and I kind of just let all that stuff go. And yeah, the drugs and the alcohol really come in hard then.
I think that's what happens with kids. We just want to play and we want to be out on our bikes or we'll get up to mischief or whatever. You know what I mean? It's yeah. I had a lot of mates over the years that could have been, pro boxers and pro footy players and all different sorts of sports. And yeah, it's a common story. So how old were you when you first got locked up?
So I started getting arrested when I was, when I was young, maybe about 13. I started getting arrested, and then like when I from the age of 13 to like 18, I'd been arrested that many times. But then like when I turned 18 is when like I went to actual jail, you know what I mean? And like that was in Canberra there, it was, it's hard to say, but like I don't know, maybe I felt like a bit comfortable there, I was comfortable in those environments, and then and then it was just in and out from there, like I was in and out from 18 to 22, and then I was in from 24 to 30. Yeah.
So you got a 6-year whack when you were 24, or was it sort of like 6 months and 9 months and 12 months and 18 months sort of thing, like in and out?
Yeah. So when I was I'd been bailed I'd been bailed from, I think, where did I get bailed from? Parkley. And I got bailed to a rehab actually, and the charges were pretty small, but I knew that there was there was other charges pending that hadn't come through yet. And like my smart thinking at the time was, as soon as I got bailed to this rehab, I just packed my stuff and went on the run to Queensland, and then like in my head, my thinking at the time thought that I was going to go on the run to Queensland and just live this mad life, away from everything, and just have it sorted, But I got up there, and within like 4 or 5 days, I got done for a home invasion and armed robbery, and so I got arrested for that, and I went to. Like I obviously got arrested for that and was remanded into custody there, and I pled guilty to all that. So like I got 3 years with one on the bottom there, and then like when my time was finished there, the detectives from New South Wales had come up and charged me with these other more serious charges, and then I was extradited back to New South Wales. Then I had to spend the next 5 years in prison down here. Yeah.
So they pretty much picked you up at the gate and then drove you back to New South Wales, remanded you again, and then you're basically locked up for 5 years straight. Is that sort of how it went?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so they, they picked me up, and then actually they flew me down on a plane, on a Qantas flight. it was pretty embarrassing actually, because I was there with two detectives, handcuffed, and there was like families and stuff sitting around me, and walking through the airport and stuff. It was it was really embarrassing, but then yeah, like so when I arrived back in Sydney, I was sitting at Silverwater Jail, sitting in the yard in the pod, and fuck, I was really depressed, because I thought I was getting out, and yeah, so I just, it is what it is, I guess, at the time. So I just, I didn't know where my head was at the time, but I wasn't real. I didn't know much about recovery. I'd been to rehab before, but it was to please the courts. Like when I'd go there, I wouldn't listen. I'd been around recovery, but I didn't know what recovery was at the time. So yeah, I spent the next years in prison. I got involved with all the politics and stuff in there. I was a really angry, violent inmate. I spent a lot of time in Segro. I spent, majority of my times in maximum security jails, and lots of fights, stabbings, everything bad that you can think of. I got up to it in jail. I was such a lost person, a lost young man, and I didn't really know where my place was in the world, and I wanted to, half the reason I did the stuff I did is because I just wanted to fit in and find somewhere where I belonged, because I always felt like I didn't really belong anywhere, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I get that, and I appreciate that. And did you get any like inside charges and longer stay from some of them, fights and different things like that, or you were pretty lucky to avoid that stuff?
So I did spend a lot of time in Sega over it, and there was like I'll actually tell you this story about. This is where I actually thought of. This is the first time I actually wanted to really change my life. There was an incident at Lithgow Jail, and someone was hurt really bad there, and because of me, and like I remember seeing this bloke in the cell. Like he was lying there, and there was blood everywhere, and I thought this bloke was dying, and I remember looking around the wing, and there was a lot of, at Lithgow Jail, there's a lot of people doing a long time there, and I remember looking around the wing, and just seeing all these old people in there that have 20, 30 years, and I just wanted to, I prayed. This is like I prayed to God. I said, God, if you save this bloke, I will I will really try and change my life, because I was thinking about my son. I only had one son at that time, and I was thinking about all the things I missed out of from not having a dad, and I prayed, and the spin out thing is that, like, as soon as I finished praying, this bloke jumped up out of the cell. He wasn't in a good way, and he stumbled out in the yard, and he dropped, and he got airlifted out, and this bloke lived. And after this, and I didn't get in any trouble for this. I didn't get caught for nothing, and after that, I really, I wasn't perfect, but I tried to do the best I could to really try and remove myself from certain situations and not get involved in the politics, and kind of get ready for, when my parole was coming up, and what I was going to do when I was to get released,
Yeah, gotcha. Was there much support? Like you sort of, you prayed to God and you wanted to turn your life around. Was there much like programs in there, or any church, or any things that would help you a little bit? Or was it sort of like you couldn't really get too involved with anything because you didn't want to sort of show any weakness or anything like that? You sort of had to keep up your appearance and all that till you got out.
Yeah, well, you know what, there were like, there's not really much you can do in jail. Like, there are a few courses here and there, and they have these little churches sometimes, but you know what, it's nothing you can really push into it and find peace in, And like when I like, after this situation, and I was trying to do the right thing, but I still had a raging drug habit. You know what I mean? Like, insane me trying to do the right thing, but like I was still like, I'm still an addict, and I still needed to feed my drug habit. Like at the end of the day, like I stopped, doing my own things, and I stopped kind of standing over people for stuff. But like, if I was sick from not having drugs, I was going to get them regardless as well.
Yeah, no, I get it. So how long, and then when did you last sort of get out, and how long have you been out for now?
So I got out in January 2020. So I've been out over 5 years now. Yeah, and you know what? This is the longest time I've spent out of jail. But like, when I got out of the jail, that's when the real fucking battle started. Like I got out and I didn't know what to do. I got paroled to my mum's place in Newcastle. Um, um, yeah, I was really lost. I was obviously going to my parole officer, seeing my parole officer a fair bit. There wasn't really much help there, and I didn't know how to go about trying to look for work and my anxiety was through the roof. Like I could barely talk to people. I wasn't comfortable going out anywhere. You know what I mean? Like it was just really hard to function at that time. Yeah, but yeah, you know what? Like when I got out, that's when the real struggle with my addiction started. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been out 5 years. That's a massive achievement, bro. And I mean, I know myself, different mates I've had over the years and guys that have been through a lot of prison and that to stay out 5 years, that's a massive achievement. And I'd imagine over the last 5 years, you would have had to really, humble yourself a lot and really there would have been times where you were probably really tested and people, being smart asses or whatever and different things like that. And you would have had to not get in that violent mode or whatever because you would have got locked up pretty quick. So that would have been pretty hard sometimes, I'd imagine.
Yeah, yeah, it's been like now it's getting easier, but like it's been fucking hard. And I like when I got out I met my youngest son's mother.
Mm.
And I started a relationship with her and to be honest with you, like if it wasn't for this girl, um, I wouldn't, she taught me how to live, she taught me how to make phone calls. She taught me how to talk to people. She taught me how to pay bills. She taught me how to do everything. Then, we had our youngest son, Josh. And like, I was trying to do all these things that I'd never done before, like I was trying to, provide for her in a like legit kind of way.
Yep.
I had a place for us. We had a nice place in Lane Cove, and I was doing all these things I'd never done before. We were setting up the baby's room, and you know what, like, because also like I was a member of the rebels, and like when she got pregnant, like I had a choice whether like because I was still kind of dabbling in the life when I got out, because like old acquaintances, and I was going to meet up with people trying to make little earns and things like that. But I didn't want to go too, I didn't want to get right into it because my oldest son and then like my missus was pregnant as well. And I was really, I was kind of torn between two worlds. And I come to a decision where, I didn't want to live that life anymore. And I made a decision to, step away from that. I was trying to do all these things that I never done before. And it got so overwhelming that this is when the real battle with addiction started because I had a bad relapse and like it was fucked. Within like from the time of me picking up to within 3-4 months I lost everything, like and that's what the how insane this disease is and the insidiousness of this disease, she'd be sitting there telling me, like, Caleb, if you don't stop, if you can't stop, I'm going to take Josh and I'm going to leave. And that was that was the last thing I wanted to happen. And, like, still couldn't stop. She ended up taking Josh and leaving. Within a few months, I had nothing. Like, she took everything. I let her take it all for, she had my son. And I was left there in this empty house with just a mattress on the floor, and then really from at that point there is when the real battle with addiction started for me.
Yeah. And what were you using? Mainly ice or?
Yeah, so like I always had a drinking problem, but like when I first got out, I was I wouldn't say I was able to control it, but I think I was in a half happy headspace where I was finding more joy in being around my partner at the time than I did of drinking, and I think when all this stuff happened and I got so stressed out, like, I started drinking a lot more and then, I picked up ice again and that was it, I just couldn't stop from there.
Yeah. Once it grabs you, it sort of grabs you. But you know what, bro? You should be really proud of yourself that you've stayed out because it sounds like you might have, the addiction stuff's still there, but you might have really broken off some of that criminal stuff, which is, that's sort of been my story a little bit. Like I was able to break away from the criminal stuff, but the drugs took a little bit longer you know what I mean, break away from. So yeah. So what are you doing now? You nearly finished the program. You're telling me next week you're about to leave.
Yeah. So like I'm in Goulburn at the minute. You know, because like I said, I've been struggling with this stuff for a while now. You know, like you said, you know, the addiction stuff has been there, but I've been able to break away from the criminal stuff. You know, like I haven't had any fresh charges since I've been out. You know, I haven't even, you know, I haven't thought of doing any crime. You know, it's like I had these two really bad things in my life, which is, you know, like obviously the crime and the stuff I used to do and the addiction stuff, and I've managed to wipe half of it, you know, and this is what's left. And, you know, I'm in my 13th rehab because, you know, I've been a serial relapser because, you know, when life gets, you know, life on life's term stuff, but I haven't been able to handle that. And today's different, but like, you know, I still have a lot of stuff going on in life, but you know, I'm about to finish this program on next Thursday, and you know, I'm going to start studying, and I'm going to go. You know, I just want to give back and help people now because, you know, I took. It's just been a real blessing to be able to get to where I'm at today. You know.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you going to study?
Well, I want to study community services so I can work in rehabs and do some sort of stuff like that and just give back to people.
Yeah, mad. Yeah, that'll be good. And have you been doing any study through the program, or is it more just like step work and stuff like that? Or
Yeah, like I've been doing step work. I've been like, so I did start studying before this last relapse, and I almost finished it, my Cert 4 in AOD, but now I can start studying in the next 2 months, I think, because I'll probably stay up here for a little bit just to stay away from Sydney, and
yep.
then I want to get back into Sydney and you know, start helping people because, you know, I know what it's like to not have the support, and especially coming out of jail and not knowing what to do, and having my own experiences and my own understanding on how hard it is at times. That's what I want to do, give back to people.
Yeah, mad. No, well, you'll be able to help a lot of fellas, bro, and you should be really proud of yourself. I know you've had a few stumbles and things like that, but I think when, you know, we've got so much trauma and so much things that we're going through, it's like, yeah, it's a real process. It's not just, yeah, me. I'm the same as you, bro. I've had many relapses, and you know, it's been a real journey. And even you know, like different things and losses and yeah, it doesn't just happen overnight. I sort of call it part of the growing up process. You know what I mean? Like as we grow up, we get more mature, and you know, I think when we're younger, like there's too much pain to really be able to handle it all at once. And I know for myself, there's been a lot of times where, you know, I don't know this consciously, but it's like I just need a drink or I just need a drug or whatever because it's too painful, you know, in that moment, which obviously isn't right. But you know, when we're come from, you know, a painful upbringing and different things like that, and you know, you lost your dad when you were super young, and that's really hard. And you know, you've done a lot of time, and now you've been able to stay out for 5 years, so that's a massive, you know, credit to you, and I'm sure you'll be able to do a lot of great things. I'm really glad that we could sort of link up because I'd love to have you, you know, part of what we're doing with the Long Way Foundation, and you know, we want to be able to help a lot of fellas that are, you know, done a lot of time, and guys that are you know, getting out of jail with not much direction and things like that. And there's support out there, but you know, sometimes people just need, you know, someone to what's the word, support or believe in you. You know what I mean? I was thinking about it today, like what's something that's different about me to just a normal job work, and it, like, you know, if you got no one to believe in you, you know what I mean? I feel like if someone believes in you and encourages you, it's me personally, I feel it's a pretty nice thing. So I think, you know, blokes like yourself and me and different guys that we'll be able to get, and you know, is a really powerful thing. And I think, you know, giving back, and I feel like giving back is part of, like, for me and for you also, but for anyone really, like you're giving back, but you're growing yourself. You know what I mean? There's something about when you're helping yourself, you know?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You know, like I definitely am a strong believer in, you know, like, you know, part of the healing process for me is being able to help other people heal, you know, because like it can get so, like the world can be hard, fucking place to live, you know, and especially if you don't have the support or the people who are in your corner. You know, it's really important to have people that you can, you know, that you can reach out to and that can point you in the right direction and help you go to the next level in your life, because sometimes we can get so stuck on our past and, you know, these false beliefs we have in ourselves about, you know, who we are and, you know, the things that we've done in the past, and maybe that, you know, we can get so stuck on what if I can't do this and what if I can't do this. And, you know, it's super important to have people there to help you, you know, because, you know, like I'm really grateful for everything that I've been through. And, you know, I always say that all the pain that I've been through has given me understanding for the next person, and me being able to put my hand out and say, listen, you know, like, I know where you're coming from and I know how you feel, you know, because I know sometimes that you can get in this place where you feel like nobody gets you or nobody understands. You know, we just need to have kind people in our corners to put their hand out for us and guide people in the right direction where they can have a chance at turning their lives around, you know.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really good, bro. It's been great having you on the show. We'll close it out. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Nah, bro, just for everyone who's out there and just is struggling, you know, it's change is possible. It doesn't matter where you come from or the things you've done. You know, as long as you keep picking yourself up and trying, it's possible to change, and you're never too far gone to come back and have a good life, you know. So anyone who's watching, just don't give up. 100%.
That's powerful words, bro. Really appreciate your time, and it's been great connecting with you again. We'll talk again soon anyway. But thanks everyone for watching. Thanks, Caleb. We'll see you soon. See you guys. Cheers.
Love, brother.